Take a look at this. This bar chart represents the total amount of federally funded affordable housing units built after the Second World War until 2019. Look at the steep spike from the late 60s and the sharp drop in the 90s. This represents a time that I remember as a child. There were multiple families in my small BC hometown that took advantage of public housing programs and had a beautiful single-family home to raise their children. But these homes no longer exist. Join me as I break down the root cause of the housing supply crisis here in Canada and why we're far from relief here in Nanaimo, British Columbia. Owning a home in Canada has been the bedrock of Canadian society for the last 100 years. Get a job, have a family, buy a house. This is the expectation of most Canucks once they've completed secondary, post-secondary, or serve their country and then finally start adulting. If you were born before 1990, this was a relatively easy task. However, people born during or after the epic 90s realize that they will not get to participate in this rite of passage. Home prices have doubled repeatedly over the last 20 years in Canada, which has been highly beneficial for the older generations. Our parents and grandparents bought and sold properties as their families grew and likely saw a profit each time. Unaware, our parents were benefiting from legislative changes that would be disastrous for their children in the coming years. Homeownership for an entire generation of Canadians has become impossible due to the high cost of real estate. Canada now has some of the most expensive real estate prices in North America. Take a look at the discrepancy in home prices in cities like Niagara Falls, Ontario, and Niagara Falls, New York. Even with the currency exchange, homes are nearly double the price for a Blue Jay than a Yankee. I'm not shocked that the younger generation feels like they missed out on the greatest real estate market and resent current homeowners. So why are home prices so high? It's because of severe lack of supply, which I've discussed many times before and you can watch by clicking the link up above. Low supply creates multiple bid scenarios, inflation of home prices, and investor speculation, which tends to piss everybody off. But why is there no supply? And where are the federally funded houses that were so common during my childhood? That is the real question. In Canada, the housing system relies heavily on market mechanisms for supply, allocation, and maintenance. After World War II, improvements to the housing finance sector, land servicing, and building techniques led to a lot of high-quality housing for most Canadians. The housing supply now growing means rental housing is going to be a residual part of this housing system, concentrated in urban areas and catering to more low-income households and singles and minorities. This is where we start seeing the buildup of the rental market that's going to support not only homeowners, but people who need to rent. Moving forward, shifts in housing policy occurred, notably in the late 60s, leading to the establishment of non-market social housing sector. This was a good time. However, in the mid-80s, there was a backlash against large public housing estates, and the decline in federal funding for social housing occurred in the early 90s. This represents my time as a child, when the idea of homelessness in Canada was just unthinkable. During the 1990s, we coasted on the accomplishments of previous housing projects as legislative changes took place in Canada. The federal government pretty much dumped the responsibility of subsidized housing on the provinces and municipalities in the early 2000s. This saw an insane drop in public housing projects. Local and provincial governments now squabble over responsibility, which has effectively fractured the Canadian housing strategy into a disorganized mess. This caused public housing supply to collapse and bureaucratic chicanery to take place. Now, we need to step back real quick and talk about one factor that also is driving this. Back in 1995, an interesting thing happened. Immigration became the primary source of population growth in Canada, which has only been accelerating ever since. Immigrants are not the issue. We're all immigrants to Canada, apart from the proud First Nation people who come from this land. Statistics Canada forecasts that in 2041, if current trends continue, half of the Canadian population will be made up of immigrants and their Canadian-born children. An already stressed housing supply, compounded by the need for lower-cost housing due to immigration, has created a situation that could have been planned for in retrospect. It is the responsibility of provinces and the municipalities to deal with public housing projects since the 2000s. However, it is the federal government that controls immigration, which is a significant factor in the growing demand for housing. And just because things are bad, it doesn't mean we can't improve the situation by focusing on where our tax dollars go to benefit all of Canada. Now, this is a no-brainer, but building houses is good for everyone, and this needs to be the highest priority for federal, provincial, and municipal governments. We have timber, stone, and the know-how to make this a reality. Canada is resource-rich and filled with ridiculously hardworking people. The housing crisis will become a national opportunity once we decide to take action. This is going to take time, but if we all start pulling in the same direction together, we can make the housing crisis a memory of the past. With that in mind, I hope you get to live the island life soon. And if you want to learn more about doing so, I would definitely check out this video right here, or this video right here.